Although he tried, it was hard to keep the levity disk secret. John Searle saw a future that would want to take advantage of his generator and levity disk.
It's the flying side that brought the money in.
Yeah.
In 1968, we reached the greatest height we ever done.
The generator could be used as a power source, but it was the flying side that caused excitement. These craft had designations and sequence numbers such as the P-11.
Probe means a probe. It's a man. PM if it's a manned vehicle. These first ones we did were all unmanned.
In his growing library, John Searle kept extensive record of his generator and levity disk. Among these documents are calculations and descriptions of experimental flight tests, some of which survive today. These are photos and excerpts from the original record of the P-11 launch on June 30th, 1968.
We have carried the P-11 weighing 10 hundredweight to a position clear of the overhead high-voltage lines. The sun is shining, but it is not pleasant. The wind is cold, and a force of 8 is blowing. We shall attempt a full launch and run at 1500 hours Greenwich Mean Time. We prepared the power supplies to all equipment on the craft. We are very busy. Yet from the corner of my eye I can see watchers, but none have dared to enter the field. People rush to hide from us as if we were some kind of aliens from another world. Time to start the craft's generator up. This is connected to an outside source, in our case a small diesel engine. A minute passes by and the cutout switch of the craft breaks contact with the outside power source. The call comes through from Cornwall that all is ready. The carrier beam is on for the run. We accelerate the craft's generator. Now she is on her own. When the generator started, there was a whine rising to a high pitch, but that has stopped. The craft is shorting up very fast. Yes, the craft will clear the power lines with no trouble. I have stopped taking photos to record what I saw. The ground appeared to be rocking, yet I could not sense any such rocking. No noise was heard, but leaves and other material on the ground around us began to move in circles. I glance over the far side where 2 strangers were. What happened to them? They were running for cover in the direction from which they had come, most likely scared stiff. Then the call came in. She's crossing Cornwall now, time 15:03 Greenwich Mean Time. Our team in Cornwall turned the craft for its run back. The P-11 was over Cornwall 3 minutes after launch, a distance that would take 4 hours to travel by car. She climbed at rates of up to 1 mile per second, and during that day rose to heights of 15 miles above the surface of the Earth. We went over to the launch point and found that all the small undergrowth had been pulled up with the soil and had left a scooped-out effect where the craft had stood. Another problem we must solve is this pulling up of the Earth on liftoff and this burnt ring mark effect.
We found that it does tend to mark the ground. The reason for this is that there's an iron content in the ground. It is this iron that's been pulled up, and it pulls that surface of ground up with it. Instead of having the rare earth on the outer layer, put it on the inner, reverse. So, of course, it solved it just in one action. Instead of having a magnetic field focusing to the ground, it made a donut shape around the vehicle. The field now is a very small C field around the rim of that craft. Result is no focus to the ground, no ground distortion occurs. The other problem often presented in my case when scientists speak about my work is that it ionized the air around the craft. This is not true. There is no air around that craft. There's a magnetic field, there's a gap, a vacuum between that and the rim, and it's the photons which is discharged, trapped by the magnetic field, which gives it the glow.
The P-11 was a great secret success story, a beginning to a new age which promised that one day in the future man would travel by this method into space.
Was it secret?
It was supposed to be, but only the media was allowed to come and watch. First, we had 400 scientists that were also allowed to come who downed it. What they said was this: it could not support itself, let alone fly. So I said, right, we have now tested 40 different structure ideas. I'm going back to the one I originally proposed. You are invited and the media to come and watch, providing you do not disclose where the work is done. Sunday tidbits came and watched the flight test. Then we had the News of the World come, because they'd seen it. We want to see this disc.
At St. John's Hall in Mortimer, Berkshire, England, scientists, the press, and the public were invited as he demonstrated his technology and declared his intention to build a manned craft.
This was the hall in which we used to hold our first Sunday of each month shows. This is the hall that was known as St. John's Hall. That's the stage which I used to stand on to deliver my lecture. The audience would sit here, as press used to be at the back. When we had a load of press come to make mockery, we had the curtains brought. I stood there. We had the national anthem played there, so they all had to stand. All these people came to make mockery. At the end of 10 hours, the press came up to me and said, "We have never seen a man stand there, talk for 10 hours without looking at any references whatsoever." So I replied to them, "When you speak from the heart, you don't need papers."
John Searle spoke from his heart, but in 1969 his message played to a world that had witnessed American astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin returning safely to Earth after they had walked on the moon, the single greatest achievement in history. The media made the Levity disc a sideshow and John Searle the original urban spaceman, a crackpot, the flying saucer man. Few would take him seriously. The merits of his generator design as a power source were lost in his single-minded effort to prove his Levity disc. The press and the publicity grew.
There must be thousands of newspaper articles, television footage, and there were thousands of people who came and they filmed, they took pictures. That was the type of publicity we had. And there are many books on the market written by many writers that include my work. We had BBC regularly each month for nearly 2 years, would come and update the people. First, they would take them back to what happened the last month. Then they would say, "We went down to the woods today, and this is the progress. The structure of the demo one is now together, and the housing is going in that will house the power unit that will lift it into the skies at this point."
The Demo 1 would prove that electromagnetic flying discs were not only real, but represented the future in power and transportation. In 1968, John Searle formed the NSRC for this task, the National Space Research Consortium headquartered in his home at Mortimer, Berkshire, England. Scientists and the media were invited to watch the Demo 1 being built, outdoors on a piece of land loaned to him for this purpose. This is the voice of John Searle during the construction of Demo 1.
The position today is that we now know so much about designing these vehicles from the point of an unmanned vehicle that we feel the time is right to go ahead and carry people.
John Searle had plans for a larger craft that would carry 3 people. He continues.
The three-seater craft, which we've been asked to do, it will be a 90-foot diameter vehicle. It will weigh roughly 90 tons on completing, and the purpose is that one pilot will carry 2 official experts with him. One day you'll see a three-seater car with a lone star in the sky, and within a year you'll see massive giants coming up into the sky, taking 2,000 people from New York to London in 20 minutes or 15 minutes, from London to Sydney in 30 minutes, and we won't think nothing about it. And I think that this is business. This is really what industry wants. Fast movement, cheap price, no noise and no pollution. And the Levity disc will give you this.
While the press and publicity pushed John Searle to the scientific fringe, some individuals examined the merits of his generator design. Was this a revolutionary new way to generate electricity? John Searle came to an important realization that will stay with him for the rest of his life.
Once they see that's it, they want it. They want to own it. That's everywhere I go. The same thing happens. It's the same ignorance and greed coming together as a terrible, dangerous situation.